what do you do to maintain the weight and go from metabolic reset? It looks like Catherine also had her hand up. I'm going to jump in here a little bit and just share with the folks who haven't done or don't know about metabolic reset, just a little bit about what it is and why we've brought it into practice. So I always like to keep these photos on hand. So for those of you who don't know me, I am someone who struggled with my weight pretty much my entire life. And it wasn't really until I was in my 30s that I really got a handle on it, because I started focusing very much more heavily on not necessarily like what I shouldn't be eating, but what I should be eating. So I call it crowding out. So it's like, as Kerrie said, incorporating more vegetables, more lean proteins, more of the good stuff that truly could power my body energetically, even at like the cellular mitochondrial level. So I always keep these pictures on hand, and I think it's kind of interesting to pull out. But I mean, this was me like probably, I don't know if you can even see them, but like 30 years ago, maybe even longer. I hate to say that. This was me probably 20 years ago. So I was always like 15 to 50 pounds overweight. And despite being like a 3-sport athlete, just could not get rid of it. I come from an Italian family, so I grew up on a lot of pizza and pasta and bread and like carbohydrates, but I thought I was doing the right thing. I also grew up, Kerrie's 40, I'm 43. So we grew up in the era of like Diet Coke and Snackwell cookies, and like thought we were doing the right thing, right? And there was just so much misinformation. But what it's about is truly like feeding and fueling your body so that your cells can produce energy in an optimal way. And energy production is done through glucose uptake, which glucose is in our food. It's what every type of food, every macronutrient breaks down into. So I knew when we started Princeton Integrative Health that we needed a metabolic program, but there are so many of them, right? Like, how many people have done like everything out there, all the fad diets, right? Like South Beach, Weight Watchers, Atkins, cabbage soup diet, like some of the most absurd, ridiculous things. I was that person. And so I didn't just want the next fad. I wanted something that was doable, like people could accomplish, but then was sustainable, and that also like truly rebalance people's physiology. So one of the questions that came across was like, how do you maintain? Maintenance doesn't mean like can never have a piece of birthday cake, can't indulge and enjoy the holidays, can't go out to lunch or dinner with my girlfriends. Maintenance means finding out what works for your body, occasionally having the indulgence and knowing that you might pay for it later, but like understanding how your body reacts and responds to that. But it's also about reprogramming your body physiologically. So when you have that piece of cake, you don't put on the 3 pounds. So we don't think oftentimes when we're talking about weight loss about the physiologic aspect of it, but our weight set point is controlled by our hormones. It's controlled by our brain. It's controlled by neurotransmitters. Like our body is a system of connected networks. And there's all these things going on that cause our body to be at a certain point, whether it's a healthy weight or an unhealthy weight. So what this program is about is really focusing on, I would say, the 3 key areas, which I say keep us fat, fatigued, and frustrated, which number 1 being stress, so physiologic stress. So we as women, I feel like especially, no offense to any men who are out there watching, but we handle, and I'll use air quotes around that word, we handle stress really well. Like, Krista's working right now. She's got 3 boys under the age of, how old's Michael? 10?
He'll be 9 next week.
He'll be 9 next week. 3 boys under the age of 9 at home right now. She's trying to do this broadcast, screaming in the background. We're all like stressed to the max, and we were stressed to the max even before COVID. So like that's an extra level, right? And we wear it well. We handle it. We get up every day. We put, each pant leg on, and we show up and we do our thing, whether it's in work and career and in being a mom and relationships, whatever it might be. But we can't fool our physiology. So at some point in our life, and for you, Kerrie, it was like, whatever, late 30s, you were like, this isn't what I want to be. Like your physiology caught up, right? Because of all of this kind of snowball effect that had occurred over the course of your life. So we need to reprogram that physiology. And that's what Metabolic Reset helps to do. So you have the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, which controls downstream your thyroid. It's really like your stress regulation mechanism. And that can get overactivated. It can be underactivated if you're under chronic periods of stress. And that ultimately impacts your metabolic function. We are living in a world that is hyper toxic, whether it's the foods we eat, the water we drink, the air we breathe, the products we're putting on our skin. Toxins are stored in adipose tissue, which is fat tissue. So the more fat you have on your body, the more likely it is you are toxic. So we need to support detoxification. And then the third key area is gut health. So many folks have probably heard about the gut microbiome. It's, I would say, come more mainstream within maybe the last decade or so, but you have trillions of bacteria in your gut that help to regulate your metabolism. So it's stress, it's supporting detoxification, and it's really regulation of gut health. And those three key things are what allow this program to be both effective in loss of weight, loss of, like I would say, equal amount of inches, because the way it's structured with the macronutrient content, we're actually targeting the fat stores and not like other programs that you might drop some weight up front because you're now depleted of hydration, like you're losing water weight, you've heard that term. Or a lot of times, like you'll lose muscle. People will lose muscle through this process. So the way that the program is structured is really to tap into that resistant weight that we all hold, a lot of times viscerally, which can have a massive impact on our overall health and well-being. And you know, you're leaner, you weigh less, your clothes fit better, you have better energy, you sleep better, your skin looks better, like all of these benefits as a result of that rebalancing of hormones and neurotransmitter production and weight and fat distribution and fat content in general. So a whole bunch of stuff going on that like reset your body, but then also tell your brain, this is where I'm healthy and this is where I'm comfortable. So even if I go out to dinner and, you know, have a big steak and a couple drinks, or if I have that piece of cake or whatever at the holidays, you know, it doesn't immediately catch up with you. Now, if you're chronically overeating, chronically overdoing it, then it will. But the great thing then is that, to your point, Kerrie, you have the tools to get back on the program.
Right.
So I think that's where the value really lies.
Right. And just to build on that a little bit more, and I hope everybody can hear me a little bit better.
So much better.
Yeah, now I'm connected with my headset. So sorry.
That's okay.
If anybody has any questions about what I had gone through before, I can kind of give you a nickel tour of that. So sorry. But what I do in order to maintain is, number one, I have my coffee that was prescribed for the MRP every morning. I have that. I try not to have breakfast unless I'm starving. I'll have a lot more greens and salads for lunch with some chicken, and I have an apple almost every day for lunch. Or I'll have that at 3 o'clock when everybody starts to get hungry. I'll have a piece of fruit then. And then for dinner, I'll try to do something light. And if I want to do like some kind of carbs, I'll have rice cauliflower, or I'll do white rice instead of like brown rice or something.
That was right rice, not white rice.
Right.
So you haven't found right rice. It's a good thing to look into.
Yeah, it's vegetables essentially, and they sell it at Whole Foods. It's just super simple. And then I do try to have a cup of tea at night if I want something a little sweet, and I'll put some stevia in it, and that's really it. I mean, yes, you're right. I do at times have candy or a piece of chocolate, or I don't have cake, but yeah, maybe some gluten-free Tate's cookies or something.
Yes,
but yeah. So it can be easy, but I think also the other thing that was really, really beneficial for me is that I had a really supportive partner who was totally on board with what I was planning, what I was cooking, what I was eating, and didn't force me or encourage me to have some of this, or do something that would potentially throw me off track. And so I really have to hand it to my husband for being such a wonderful partner on my journey. and was totally supportive of everything that I was trying to do, and was even eating some of the food, and liked it. So
it's funny how that happens. Like I've had a lot of women who have started Metabolic Reset and 3 weeks into it, they're like, well, I'm happy with the program. I've lost 10 pounds, 12 pounds, whatever, but my husband's lost 30 and he's not even actually doing it. Of course.
But getting on the scale every day was also something that was a great reinforcement of holy crow, I lost another 2 pounds. And I would send photos of the scale to Jenna, celebrate with me. And so having her as a partner and as a coach was really helpful in reinforcing that progress that I was making, and sharing that outside of my family of hey, wow, look at this. It's melting away.
It's super exciting.
It was exciting.
I was just going to comment on one thing too, because you mentioned you mentioned not eating breakfast. So I do want to just share kind of the physiology behind that. So I'm sure many people have heard of intermittent fasting. There's a reason that we intermittent fast on the program. I mean, there's literature out there all over the place. On this program, we use a 16-8 fast, meaning that you consume food for a period of 8 hours and you fast for 16, majority of which is overnight while you're sleeping. And the reason for that is we have a molecule called AMPK, which is one of our major metabolic regulators. It's in the liver and the muscle and the brain. And it controls specific functions of things like glucose uptake and utilization, fatty acid intake and oxidation, appetite regulation. So specifically leptin, which is our hormone that tells our brain when we're full, and then adiponectin, which regulates glucose and fat breakdown. So it's a super important molecule. And what happens when we fast is that it enhances the AMPK pathway. So it provides the opportunity for that molecule to be utilized in the best possible way, which also helps the body to regulate, especially in the brain with the hypothalamus, body weight regulation, controlling your appetite and hunger, and doing all of those really important things that are involved in metabolic optimization. It also activates something called autophagy, which is the process by which our cells kind of clean house or recycle. So it promotes healthy cell cycling and also deep cellular detox, which again is a main kind of component of the program. We want to get rid of the toxins that are being stored in our fat tissue and stored in our cells, so that we can continue to bring in the good and kind of purge the bad.
And the other benefit of doing that intermittent fast is that by lunchtime, I'm not as hungry. I mean, yes, I'm hungry because I haven't eaten, but unlike having 3 large meals a day, your stomach starts to expand and you want more food. But with the intermittent fast, it's kind of like you're not as hungry. And so that loss of one meal is so beneficial for the rest of your day that you're eating, that you don't need as much food. And what I had said earlier that some folks might have missed is that I was amazed to see the portion size that I needed in order to sustain my day. And that I would eat these big meals and think oh yeah, this is what I need in order to sustain me for the day. But I was eating a small appetizer salad if we went out for dinner, say, and then another appetizer for my protein, and I was full.
Mm-hmm.
And that was enough food. And I was kind of an MRP no-no because I was working out too. And I was running, I was weight training, I was going to yoga and doing all kinds of other stuff. And it was amazing with all of this activity. Sustaining myself on 1,000 calories a day was more than enough.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back at kind of the last 35 years, growing up in an Italian family where it was food is love, here you go, eat some more, was so counterintuitive to what I needed.
Yeah. Yep. And you bring up a good point. So again, for those who don't know kind of the foundation of Metabolic Reset, we talk about stress being a key component. one aspect that a lot of people don't realize is when you are a heavy exerciser, oftentimes you're putting too much stress on your body. So while exercise and movement is amazing, you want to be conscious that you're not overtaxing your system, overstressing your system. So there is usually an adjustment process in terms of what exercise people are doing. We still want you moving. We still want the lymph circulating and flowing. So like walking, yoga, light yoga, Pilates, things like that, great for the period of 6 weeks while we're in what we call the losing phase. After that, you're free to go back to doing whatever you're comfortable with. But the reason behind that is that we don't want the body to be under an amount of stress while you're doing the metabolic reset. So I tell some people like, hey, you're going to lose 30 pounds and you don't need to exercise. And they're like, woohoo! Other people like Kerrie are like, oh, but I need it. It's my stress release. So, it's finding the happy medium in that process and just making sure we're keeping your physiologic stress levels in your body, as low as they can possibly be through the process. Because your body doesn't, when your body's in a state of stress, if you think back to the dates of our ancestors when we were out hunting and gathering, the stress response was for a purpose. Like a bear jumps out behind a tree. You need to hightail it out of there or like pull out your knife or whatever it is to fight the bear. So you need that surge of glucose to like push through that stressful event. Now we're under constant states of stress, and that cortisol and the stress hormones are constantly like pumping through our systems. And it becomes detrimental to our health. So if you pile on even additional incremental, like I work as, if I'm a person who works a super stressful job and I have a stressful home life, and now I'm going and training for a marathon, like you could ultimately be doing a lot more harm to your body than doing good. So it's also about like knowing what's right from a movement standpoint.
Yeah. And for me, I've always been an athlete. And for me, having that positive intake of food and exercise kind of reinforced each other for me.
Yes.
But that's, again, that was what I needed in order to make this successful. And it was. So,
and that's such a good point, because even though this is a program that I find benefits 95% of the people who do it, and the other 5 are typically people who either aren't ready for it or oftentimes, occasionally by going through this program, we might find additional health challenges that we need to mitigate before they can resume the process. But even though it's kind of a one size fits all, because it works for most people, it's not, right? Because what it does is it creates a blank slate for you to get better in tune with what your body needs and what it's telling you, and then the inputs that you're giving it that provide the outputs that you're looking for.
Right. Yeah. And I think just to reiterate a point that I had made before that might have been lost with my bad headphone thing, was that I was really ready for this. It's a commitment, right? To do this, and it's a commitment to yourself, essentially. And I mean, I've in my maintenance phase, I've tried to kind of like go back and recreate that to kind of take some pounds off. And I've done it a couple times of like, I just want to take a couple pounds off because I feel like I've gained. And if I'm not mentally prepared to do that and not mentally all in, it's really hard. So I think just to go back to it's a commitment that you have to be ready for and make to yourself.
Yeah. And I, to that point as well, I mean, you mentioned this earlier, like, I think that's why, like, talking with your family, making sure everyone's on board in your household, right? Like that's really important. I think having a partner in health like myself, who literally, like, some people, I wake up, and Nancy was on here earlier. I would wake up almost every morning at like 5:30, 6 a.m. and she was already up and she had already texted me like picture of her scale or what her weight was that day. And I would respond, I would respond to that. So it's like, it's not like you get a guidebook and it's like, go eat this, don't eat that type thing, and like go do this on your own. This is like a comprehensive program where we're constantly communicating and collaborating and figuring out like what works best for you and tweaking, right?
Right.
And that's a big piece of it. That's an important piece of it. You need that support and you need that environment for success.
Right.
We did have someone join on Facebook. who was saying that the audio was jumbled, and if Kerrie could just review her original motivation for Metabolic Reset. So would you mind just kind of repeating that piece of it?
No, that's fine. So I was struggling with just this. I know it sounds terrible, but this nasty rash that I couldn't get rid of, and Krista, I'm sorry, had gone over this in the intro, that I was going to all of these doctors and nobody could figure it out. And so finally I went to Princeton Integrative Health, and the Dr. Vinny had suggested that I go into the MRP, and it would also take some weight off. And I was at that point in my life with the rash and with the extra weight that I had on my body. I wasn't happy. I was in that point that I was there, and I usually call it my fat peak. I hit my fat peak, and now I'm ready to take it off. And and so I was introduced to Jenna, and we went through everything that I needed to do, and I was ready to make that commitment. And I was meal prepping, and I was shopping, and I was doing everything that I needed to do, and I was fully on board. And I think that whole journey that I took, that 6 weeks, helped me so much, not just physically, but mentally. And it changed my outlook on food, on what I needed in terms of calories and portions, and just what I needed on my plate in order to sustain myself. And I slept better. I had more energy. And I think everything combined also really showed me that this is all I needed. And the other added benefit was I was better. My rash went away. My skin had cleared up. I had suffered from acne for years, and I've never had clear skin until after I did this program. It took me 40 years to have clear skin, to know that it's what I'm eating that's affecting my body and my my skin, not just on my face but on my body, to really show the outside that's really being reinforced by what's on the inside and what I'm feeding myself. So yeah, it was a good process.
Thank you. Looks like we have a question in the chat from Barbara. What did you do after 6 weeks to bring you to your ideal natural weight? Do you add more and then go back to keep going to goal?
So what I'll do is I will have my breakfast of my coffee, and then I'll have a small lunch. So for yesterday, we'll take that example. So yesterday I had coffee for breakfast, which is the mushroom coffee that we have through the MRP, which at first I thought it was the most disgusting thing ever, but I'm so used to it now that I can't go back to regular coffee.
Yeah, I'm addicted.
Right? And so I'll have that for breakfast. And then for lunch, I made homemade chicken soup with just chicken and vegetables, and that's it. So I had that for lunch with an apple. Actually, I had an apple with some peanut butter. And then for dinner, I had a veggie burger on a bed of lettuce. And that was it. And then I had some tea at night. And that's really all that I know that I need to sustain myself. And especially yesterday, I didn't work out. So I don't need a lot of calories when I'm not doing anything and I'm just sitting binging on Netflix. There's nothing else to do. So,
generally speaking, the structure of the program, Barbara, is the way I describe it is 6 weeks of losing. What do we say?
And then
Something.
4 of maintenance.
It's 4 of maintenance. So it's 6 weeks of losing, 4 weeks of maintenance, a total of 10. And then like a lifetime of living, because you take it forward into, so it's 2 days of loading, 6 weeks of losing, and a lifetime of living. So up front in the program, you do 2 days where you load, like you eat a ton of food. Yes, a ton of food. I want you to eat like 5,000 calories a day, which seems totally counterintuitive. But when you think about the body being in a stress state, when our bodies are in a stress state, like I described, kind of the guy out hunting in the woods, and the bear jumps out, we hold on to things because, again, I don't think I finished that story, but back in the day, we didn't know where our next meal was coming from. So our body's actually programmed to hold on to fat. It's like a survival mechanism. So we're in states of stress like that. We hold on to fat. So we want to put your body in a state of like abundance. Like I have more than enough food for 2 days that I could ever want and ever need. So your brain and your kind of physiology recognize that, so that when we go into losing phase for the 40 days, your body's primed. Your body's primed. And I would say majority of people during that 40 days lose between 20 to 30 pounds, probably around similar number of inches all over their body. We do measurements and track that. And then we go into the 4 weeks of maintenance, which is a little bit of like a reintroduction of certain foods. I consult with you and I say, well, what do you feel your body really missed? Do you feel you're getting enough? How are you feeling overall? And we start to reintroduce some of the foods that perhaps you were missing in your diet from based upon previously. And then the goal is, like, again, a lifetime of living. So turning it into a lifestyle, as Kerrie has done. If you are someone who needs to lose, like I have a guy who went through this program who I think has lost around 120, 130 pounds because he needed to, but he did 3 rounds of metabolic reset. So if you do 6 weeks of losing, 4 weeks of maintenance, you can go back into the 2 days of loading, another however many weeks of losing. And the great thing is that once you get to a certain point, maybe you don't need to lose 30 pounds, but all of the other benefits that come into play in terms of like the rebalancing of your metabolism, the rebalancing of your hormones, all of that. Like I've personally done metabolic reset, but I'll do it for like maybe a week or 2 weeks at a time. So I'll do the loading phase. I'll do a week and I will have lost 5, 6, 7 pounds, which is how much I was looking to lose. You don't need to do the full 6-week time frame. So it's really dependent upon the individual and what your specific goals are.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I can at least, if anybody's doing this for similar reasons that were my impetus, not just to lose weight, but to also make myself better, the adding food back in was really another, I don't know what the word is that I want to use, but it was really telling to see exactly what I was allergic to. I mean, there was a hypothesis that it might be a gluten sensitivity, but adding that bread and pasta back in really showed me, because it popped up again. I knew that there's something in gluten that my body reacts to and I can't eat it.
Yeah. So even though it's not necessarily structured as like an elimination diet, ultimately it acts that way for about 40 days. So your body gets rid of a lot of the enzymes of these like highly inflammatory foods that you were previously consuming. So when you reintroduce them, you certainly know when you have an issue.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I do. And every once in a while, I'll have something and not realize that there's gluten in it. And all of a sudden, I'll start to itch. And freaking A. Just something with gluten. So, yeah.
Gluten in so much stuff that we aren't aware of. So
I know. It's terrible. And I feel like there's soy and everything.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, I can't eat that. I'll give it to my husband. Here, you can eat it. Full gluten. I can. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Kerrie. We really appreciate you coming on. Tremendous success and just such massive like appreciation for you, and kudos to you for like really being an MRP rock star, and then like walking the walk, not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. Because I think with many other programs, and granted, I will attribute the fact that you actually have reset your metabolic set point physiologically through the program, which is massive, but like it also requires you to stay on top of it. So you're doing the right things. And that's really, it's like, I would say that's the biggest transformation that occurs for most people, is like that awakening, that consciousness around what I was doing before wasn't working for me. And I love to use this phrase, which I think was actually an Albert Einstein quote, which is like, continuing to do the same thing and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. But now you know what works for you. right?
Mhm.
And so you keep doing it, and you keep doing it because you feel better, and you know you feel better. So kudos to you for like living the life and doing it right. I love you as a human being, you know that.
Thank you. I love you too.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. If you have any additional questions about Metabolic Reset, we do complimentary health strategy sessions. And I personally offer discovery sessions around Metabolic Reset. So you can either reach out to me directly. My email address is Jenna, Jenna, at PrincetonIH.com, or you can call our office at 609-512-1468. Krista and I are planning to launch into our own MRP at the end of this month, which should be exciting. We're trialing actually some new supplements and things, so I'm hoping to even expand the repertoire of options that we have to give people with this program as well. So looking forward to an amazing 2021. Thanks so much for hosting, Krista. Thanks.
Oh yeah, and I just wanted to reiterate too, just after Kerrie explained her experience with the program, that this isn't just another, hey, it's the new year, drop 10 pounds, like, kind of weight loss program. It is a transformative program, and it's not just about your weight, although that's, a really positive aspect of it if that's what you're looking to do. But the reason why I want to get on board with you to do this is just for all those other reasons that Kerrie talked about, just to be good to my body. And after the year we've all had, I think we all deserve that and really need to honor that. So
yeah, and that's a good point, Krista. I will, even though when we talk about metabolic reset, we talk about metabolism, you think about fat loss, but like so many other added benefits. So oftentimes when people come to our office and they have any complaint, like skin, migraine, headaches, joint pain, all of these things, we'll push them on to metabolic reset because we know that's the right direction to go. And so not only do they then feel a whole lot better based upon their original symptom complaint, but they also like lose weight and gain energy and do all this other amazing stuff, like achieving, at least beginning the journey to optimal health. I will put a disclaimer on this program. Many women of childbearing age have gotten pregnant as a result of doing this program because it puts your body in an optimal health state. So we didn't used to disclaimer that, but now I feel I have to, because women who have wanted to get pregnant, it's worked for, amazing. But some women who haven't really been expecting to get pregnant have gotten pregnant. So I do need to like put that out there. We did get another question from Catherine. Can you outline how this begins? So I think just in terms of the process. So basically what happens is we would set up an initial consultation. You and I, we would talk for probably about 45 to 60 minutes. I want to understand your background, your health history, any challenge you've had, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you. We can do that either in person or depending on where you are, a telehealth session is fine. And then we would get you started on the program. So there are a few supplements involved in the process, most of which are homeopathic. A very good high quality probiotic. You'd get all the program materials, and you will get, I'll set you up in a system where you're getting a daily email from me. So I'm accessible to you. You have my email address, you have my direct cell phone number. Most people text me very frequently, either with questions or just to say like, look at the scale today. This is so exciting, which is great, but it's constant communication. And I think that's a big piece of it. Again, it's not just like, here's this program, go do it, you're on your own. It's like, I'm in it with you, and like your success is my success. And it's super exciting to see how this plays out. So we do I usually get people set up on a weekend because I find it's easier to do the loading days on a weekend, on a Saturday and Sunday where you have accessibility to food. So Saturday, Sunday loading, and then we start losing phase on Monday. And again, the losing phase is 40 days. And then we meet again, usually around week like 4 to 5, to talk about what transition into maintenance would look like for you. So how have you done? What have you missed? What don't you miss? How are you feeling? Like what's improved for you? What hasn't? Maybe there are things that perhaps have been challenging. And then we put together a plan for maintenance. So that's kind of how it works. And then do we refer blood work? Depends on how the person does. I will be on, like, I'm not a doctor, so I don't diagnose, but there have been a few circumstances where, maybe 2 or 3, where people have started down the path of metabolic reset and they haven't dropped weight in the way, or their body hasn't shifted in the way that I've anticipated them to. So we have ordered blood work, like full thyroid panel, and actually found like undiagnosed Hashimoto's thyroiditis, because their TSH levels, which are traditionally checked in like conventional medicine, look normal, but actually their body's producing antibodies against the thyroid, which you don't know unless you're testing for antibodies. So we'll occasionally look for blood work. If you're someone who wants to do blood work to see the before and after, Dr. Vinny is here. You know, we're happy to give a slip or even order some blood work that can be drawn in our office so that we can kind of track and monitor how that's affecting you from a biomarker standpoint. The cost of the program is, so originally it's $1,500, $1,499, offering a new year best use special, which is $999. So that covers the full 10-week program, and then ongoing support. So that's the other thing too, is like once you're part of the MRP group community, we have a Facebook group, once you're in, you're always in. Mm-hmm. So again, like you have the tools, you have the materials, you have access to me, you have access to the PIH MRP community. And it's really it's a community and a tool set for a lifetime of health and well-being.
The program provides recipes too, right, Jenna?
Yeah, you get a full recipe guide. So there's a full like 50-page recipe guide, which you get with your program guide as well, which outlines exactly every detail of the program. And then also over the course, I've been running this now for probably a couple years. And hundreds of people have been through the program successfully. And what's great about it is that I find that people get really excited. Like once they get settled into like the parameters and the foundation of what the program entails in terms of like prepping and cooking and all of that, they start to get really creative. And so they develop their own recipes and then they start to share those back. So I've also created a electronic repository of recipes as well, which is probably at least another 50, if not more pages of options. So it's, it's lunches, it's dinners, it's soups, it's stews, it's desserts. And yeah, it becomes fun. I find a lot of people have really taken to the whole like prepping cooking aspect, whereas before they just weren't doing that, but they didn't actually realize how much fun it can be and how enjoyable it can be.
I actually have a couple photos of my fridge on Sunday night after I had done all of my prep. That was just a fridge full of food for the week, and it was a thing of beauty.
It is.
I didn't
really
have to
beautiful.
think. I didn't have to think at all. All of my meals were made, and I would make like 2 or 3 types of chicken or turkey or whatever it was, sausages, chicken sausage, whatever. And I would have that for the whole week. I would chop up vegetables that I can put in salads, and I didn't have to think about it. It was one less thing. I would come home from work and not have to think about what am I going to have for dinner or what am I going to make for lunch for tomorrow. Everything was done.
Yeah. Yep. And it is beautiful. I mean, all the colors, all the phytonutrients, all the amazing things you're giving to your body. And then to your point, like the things that you discover that maybe you didn't know you liked, like you try new foods, and it's exciting to do that. And like, I used to roast vegetables with like a lot of either olive oil or like avocado oil. And I recognized that I was drowning the taste of the vegetables in the oil, and like just a little bit of broth was so tasty for roasting vegetables. So it's fun. It's like, it can be fun.
And Frank's hot sauce is something that I've never used until MRP. And now that the slogan is true.
It is so true.
Yep.
Amazing. All right. So I don't see any other questions, but again, if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. It's Jenna, Jenna at PrincetonIH.com, or our office phone number is 609-512-1468. It's in the chat. Or hit us up on Facebook as well. We are responsive to those messages. So thank you so much. I'm wishing everyone a massively healthy and happy 2021, and look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Yes, thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thanks. You.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.